Hey man, welcome back to Man Time. Today's episode we are following up with the chainsaw mill on Man Time here. We're going to talk about lessons learned after a full day of use. What could I have done better? What did I kind of do okay? What should you look out for? Let's get to it. Welcome to Man Time. So, as a chainsaw beginner, these are some of the things that I wish I would have known going into it. You know, some of the things that could probably help you out. If you like this type of stuff, want to see more of it, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. But we're going to talk about all the things I wish I would have done, some things that actually went pretty well, and just some lessons learned in general. So, first thing here, I wish I would have set this all up before I went and put it in the wood, or at least try to, put it in the wood. First thing I found out, I got it all assembled, and then my chain was loose. And this one's got the adjuster coming in through the front, so I basically had to disassemble the whole thing, to get my chain adjusted right. But that's one thing to look out for, especially on one if you've got an adjuster in the front, like on this 3120. Chainsaw size does matter, especially in this case where you're milling. This is a 42-inch bar buried in a, ripping cut versus a cross cut, which is your traditional, cutting up rounds of firewood. So bigger is better. I didn't think this thing was going to have a problem, but I was able to stall it out like several times because, you want to basically push on it as hard as you can to get done with this long sustained cut as quickly as possible. 120cc chainsaw, ported up a little bit more intake timing, modification on the carburetor to allow more gas in, and unlimited coil. So this is about as big as it gets, with a couple modifications there that make it really handy, for a big long sustained cut. Of course, opened up the muffler, let those exhaust gases out and keep the chainsaw cool. So I'm working with the best tool possible, and it was still stalling out. Running excellent though. Got it really dialed in. I went up 2 of the drill sizes for the carburetor to get it to come up and start wrapping out. I think at about 11,000 is where it's cutting out at. Now one thing here, the bar size, right? The bar size is 42 inches, but I've got these huge 60-inch logs, and I need to cut them down to where I can actually mill with this 42-inch bar and a 48-inch chainsaw mill. I got pretty much the biggest one I thought I would need. Getting anything over a 42-inch bar around here is like, pulling hen's teeth. It's just not going to happen. So I couldn't find any hen's teeth. The next best option was use the bar and chain setup that I had, get a chainsaw mill. And I was basically looking for a 48-inch. And they've got, of course, the Alaskan Granberg chainsaw mill, I think is kind of the main one that all of these other ones are modeled after. But yeah, I wish I would have set it up here and then measured to see actually how long I needed to cut down that big 60-inch. And right now, I am looking right at about 35.5 inches would be the absolute most that I could cut. So I ended up cutting that one down to about 34 inches, using this as a guide. But if I just would have measured, I could have said, okay, the maximum cut I'm going to get is, it's 35.5, so I could have cut it down to like 35 and known that I was going to be able to get that chunk of wood in between, this chainsaw mill to actually be able to cut it. Other thing with the chainsaw mill, when I was setting it up, like I said, the dog ate my instructions. I had left the mill out and left the instructions up on something. I guess the wind blew it off and then the dog found it, or whatever. I was able to find instructions on how to set it up. I think it was on Tractor Supply website. They sell a similar one called like the Timber Tough or Timber King or something like that. It's going to be another knockoff similar to like this Weaver one. I think they're all going to be about the same, made as cheaply as possible. Just little bird crap welds on the nuts there to hold the nuts on the back side of stuff. It is what it is. It's a cheap mill. And if you're going to be doing a lot of milling, then you're probably not going to want a chainsaw mill anyway. This is pretty much the slowest, most labor-intensive way to make lumber out there. But if you've got a gigantic piece of wood that's too big for a chainsaw mill, I mean, that was my only option in this case, right? The chunks of wood are just so huge. Red oak, 60-inch around. I think I cut those into like 9-foot lengths. Somewhere's right in there anyway. I'm planning on doing a lot of the window trim, but I also was looking online. Man, I gotta show you this. Check this out. Yeah, I don't know how well this is gonna come through, but look at that. That is a kitchen all blacked out with like beautiful oak countertops and shelves and stuff like that. So after seeing some of those pictures coming up, and those were just like in a Facebook feed or something, I think my wife saw them and sent them to me. But yeah, that shows like how beautiful some of this stuff can be used, you know, differences in where it can be used throughout the house. So I'm definitely going to be doing, you know, some bigger, thicker cuts. That one in the picture there looked like it may have been 3 to 4 inches. So I'm going to be experimenting as far as, you know, where to cut, you know, thickness-wise. That first cut there, I had it set at 2 inches, and that was a pretty good chunk. But you're losing quite a bit in the kerf there too. I don't think it came out to a full 2 inches. So that's the other thing, is like make a test cut, make a thin cut, and then figure out how thick that piece is, and then where you need to offset in order to get the exact thickness that you're going for, right? Last thing, the instructions that I found online to assemble this thing, again, I think exactly as shown for this Weaver one. I don't know about the Granberg. Again, I don't have that one, and I couldn't find instructions online for assembly. But whenever you assemble it, you want to make sure your gas and oil caps are facing up. That's going to put you running the chainsaw with your left hand and pushing on this thing with your right. You can see here, I actually have it set up backwards, and the major problem there was the chip evacuation was basically right up into my face. Having the bar cover on this side and the clutch cover, all those chips are coming straight out of there, and it's fine chips, right? You've got a ripping chain on there, and that's going to have that rounded edge, about a 10-degree angle on the cutters. So it's making a smooth, nice cut for that ripping, so it's near, you know, ready to use. Not much cleanup as far as the chain marks in the wood. But yeah, it was set up wrong, and that's how it was shown in the instruction manual. I looked like back on Amazon and was looking at the pictures for this one, and that's how it was shown. It was showing the person running the chainsaw with the right hand and pushing with the left. That is not the way to do it. So let's get this thing tore down and set up in the correct manner. Alright, well, the best way to go about assembly and disassembly on this guy is going to be, you're going to want to take the front of your nose out first. So that's going to be loosening up these two screws here. And you can see the scrunch was not the best tool to get that done. It's going to be much nicer with like an open-end wrench to get in here and get at them. So that'd be another tip that I learned a little too late, was your scrunch isn't going to loosen up all of these nuts and be able to adjust the either the height. Let's see here. No, you can adjust the height, because the height is going to be this piece here. So you can loosen these, and that's one way you can actually get your scrunch on the ones that attach to the bar as well. So the easiest way to take this thing on and off is just to loosen up the U-bolt that's coming through and holding this piece here. And then you can just basically slide the mill up and off. And like I said, using a open end, or in this case a ratchet, it's going to allow that to happen the easiest. There we go. Make sure you don't lose any pieces. Alright, there we go. Alright, so next we need to flip these around so they are pointing the other way. Let's go ahead and go through that process here. Oh, and it loosened up on me a little bit, and that was because I couldn't get my scrunch on there quite enough to tighten these down fully. Yeah, this one too, a little bit loose. There's two. Now I think, even though the pictures only show it the one way, I think it's kind of an ambi system. And I mean, that's what we're going to find out right now. But this is the way you want it. You want these posts sticking up and going toward, again, fuel and bar oil. Yeah, so there wasn't really too much online instruction as far as like where exactly to mount this to, or in the instruction manual, you know, it's just kind of like mount it to the tip. But I don't think you're going to want it right on these rivets here. You put, you know, pressure on those rivets, it could squeeze down and try to lock up that sprocket that's in that nose there. So I moved it back just off of those rivets, and it did seem to work for me, just kind of like right here. So that's where I had it, and it ended up working out and not having, you know, friction on the sprocket. But, you know, it's hard to say. Down there in the comments, I guess, where do you mount your chainsaw mill onto your nose? Do you go right on top of the rivets like that, or do you come back a little bit and then mount it down? I am going to actually try mounting it to the rivets here, right on top of the rivets, and just kind of see what that does as far as... See, right now, it's able to move, right? So I guess the important thing is just tighten it down and continue to check for free movement on the chain. Yeah, see, right there, now the chain is locked up. The chain will not move. So that's not going to be where you want it mounted to. Okay, well, that is helpful to figure out, you know, where you want to mount this thing. Again, try to mount it in the center, and I guess off of those rivets is going to be the place to be. There again, check for free spin, tighten it down, check for free spin, and nice and tight. Alright, so basically, one thing you can do to see if you're kind of got it set up pretty close is look at the handle and like where that's going to be pushing. You're going to want to be pushing onto that pulling chain, right? So the chain pulls in this way on the bottom, and that's going to pull the chainsaw into the wood, and you want to be pushing you know, into the wood like that. So I'm going to have to loosen this up, slide it this way. But I'm also going to want to now, well, I'm going to have to slide these back over this way. And this is kind of a pain, especially with this little clamping part of the system here. Yeah, you need a pliers to get on that, or a really small socket. Let's see here. Is it an 8? Yeah, so that one's going to be an 8. And then it's got a Phillips on the other side. So you're going to have to loosen that up to slide this piece back and forth along with these two nuts on the end here. Alright, well, one other thing you're going to have to do is basically completely rearrange these all together, right? So with this like this, it's impossible to adjust to adjust the height. So this is actually going to have to be turned around like this. So these U-bolts are going to be facing this way. So you can actually get a wrench on them, you know, with the saw on this side here. So both sides are going to have to be switched around, right? Because now this is going to have to ride on this side versus where it's at now. But this was how it was shown in the pictures. Again, I guess just don't follow the instructions from online on how to set this thing up, because they are not correct. And lastly, you're going to want to have this little bolt screw facing out, right, away from this with the nut. Otherwise, there's no way, because you're having to tighten it down with that nut versus the Phillips is just not gonna get it done for you. Alright, man, I think that is the proper way to set up the chainsaw mill. I did find one thing there in the assembly of it, setting it up, you know, to mill going this way. Oh, you know what? I should probably... No. Yeah, that's going to be fine. That's the way it was shown in the picture, was this bar sitting across here, you know, with this, if it was facing around. I was trying to turn this, like maybe that was the issue. Anyways, this is the correct way to set it up, right? Bar and chain oil facing up, chips blowing down, finger on the trigger with the left hand and right hand on the mill. Although I did find one fatal flaw, you know, of course, it's not the original. It looks like this little holder for the U-bolt, that little cup there, is some sort of pot metal, maybe cheap cast aluminum, but this side broke, right? So now there's a crack right down the middle of that little U-bolt holder. So, you know, there again, if you're looking for something that's going to be better, you're going to have to pay more and go with a brand name like Grandberg. Beaver stuff is very cheap. You know, the price tag is very cheap. They are made very cheap. The dimensional tolerances on it are just way high. That's, you know, a lot of things that you find that are going to be cheaply made, they widen the tolerance gap, and that way everything fits together, but it's just sloppy. Like if a bolt comes loose, the whole thing just starts rattling itself apart, right? The tolerance is... And that's why, you know, more expensive stuff has a narrower tolerance. It's harder to get that fit up just right, get everything fixtured exactly right to where you can hold a tight tolerance. When you don't do that, you know, this is what you get. Cheap tools, but you know, it's at a price point where I'm not too disappointed about it. I think I paid somewheres around, I don't know, 70, 80 bucks or thereabouts. And like I said, there's a couple different knockoff brands for the Grandberg, but if you want the Grandberg 48-inch, I think it's running $250 to $300, something like that. So you're coming in about a third of the price with half the quality or a third of the quality. But anyways, I hope that helps you out. If it did, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe again, and get out there, have you some man time too.